Check out this tweet from Shahid Siddiqui, a Muslim activist in India. One reason you will rarely find a Muslim abusing the religious saints and gods of other religion is that Quran forbids them from doing so. Despite ruling for 800 years, you will hardly find anything in Islamic literature denigrating gods of other faiths. Now, as someone who receives dozens of messages per day from Muslims denigrating my religion, I have to wonder what kind of delusional bubble Mr. Siddiqui lives in. But let's focus on his claims about the Quran commanding Muslims not to insult other people's gods. Surah 6, verse 108. And insult not those whom they, the disbelievers, worship besides Allah, lest they insult Allah wrongfully without knowledge. Thus we have made fair seeming to each people its own doings, then to their Lord is their return, and He shall then inform them of all that they used to do. Notice what the verse says here. It doesn't say, don't insult other people's gods because it's wrong to insult other people's gods. It says, don't insult other people's gods lest they insult Allah. So don't insult their gods if they're going to insult your God in return. Surah 6 is a Meccan surah. Muhammad and his followers were completely outnumbered when this verse was revealed, so the unbelievers were free to insult Muhammad's beliefs. Muhammad didn't want them to insult his beliefs, so he delivered Surah 6, verse 108 to his followers. Let's read Ibn Kathir's commentary for some background. Allah prohibits His messenger and the believers from insulting the false deities of the idolaters, although there is a clear benefit in doing so. Insulting their deities will lead to a bigger evil than its benefit, for the idolaters might retaliate by insulting the God of the believers, Allah. None has the right to be worshipped but He. Ali bin Abi Talha said that Ibn Abbas commented on this ayah, 6:108. They, the disbelievers, said, O Muhammad, you will stop insulting our gods, or we will insult your Lord. Thereafter, Allah prohibited the believers from insulting the disbelievers' idols, lest they insult Allah wrongfully without knowledge. Abdur Razak narrated that Mamar said that Qatada said, Muslims used to insult the idols of the disbelievers, and the disbelievers would retaliate by insulting Allah wrongfully without knowledge. So, before Surah 6 was revealed, Muslims were insulting the gods of the non-Muslims. Why would they do that? Well, they were simply following the example of their prophet. The History of At-Tabari, Volume 6, page 93. The Messenger of Allah, Muhammad, proclaimed Allah's message openly and declared Islam publicly to his fellow tribesmen. When he did so, they did not withdraw from him or reject him in any way until he spoke of their gods and denounced them. According to Muslim sources, the pagans of Mecca didn't have any problem with Muhammad preaching Islam until he started denouncing their gods. A few pages later in Tabari, the pagans complain about Muhammad's religious intolerance. They say, We have never seen the like of what we have endured from this man. He has derided our traditional values, abused our forefathers, reviled our religion, caused division among us, and insulted our gods. We have endured a great deal from him. So Muhammad reviled their religion and insulted their gods. Since Muhammad is the pattern of conduct in Islam, it should come as no surprise that his companions followed his example by insulting the gods of the polytheists. When the polytheists decided to retaliate by insulting Muhammad's God, Allah suddenly called for an end to the insults. But this was only temporary. As we read in the Tafsir of Ibn Abbas, Surah 6 verse 108 was abrogated or cancelled by Allah's command to fight the polytheists. Verse 108 is in parentheses, and Ibn Abbas's commentary is outside the parentheses. Revile not those unto whom they pray, i.e. worship, beside Allah, lest they wrongfully revile Allah through ignorance, because they have no knowledge or argument. This after he told them, "Lo, you idolaters, and that which you worship beside Allah are fuel of hell." But then this was abrogated by the verse of fighting. In other words, when Muhammad and his followers were outnumbered in Mecca, they were commanded not to insult the polytheists because the polytheists would insult Allah in return. But when Muhammad had an army and could violently subjugate the polytheists, it was okay once again to insult their gods. And that's exactly what we find in the Muslim sources. If you've got your kids watching this with you, you might want to cover their ears for a moment, unless you're ready to explain some details about female anatomy. In the following passage, Muhammad was at war with Mecca, and a pagan named Urwa points out that there are only two possible outcomes for Muhammad. If Muhammad is victorious over his own tribe, the Quraysh, he'll be remembered as a man who slaughtered his own tribesmen. If the Quraysh are victorious over him, his followers will abandon him. Either way, Muhammad loses, so he should end his war against the Quraysh. Not a bad argument, but watch how Abu Bakr, Muhammad's closest companion and the first of the rightly guided caliphs of Islam, responds to Urwa. The History of At-Tabari, Volume 8, page 76. Urwa went to the Prophet and began speaking to him. The Prophet spoke as he had spoken to Budayl. Then Urwa said, "Muhammad, tell me, if you exterminate your tribesmen, have you ever heard of any of the Arabs who destroyed his own race before you? And if the contrary comes to pass, by Allah I see both prominent people and rabble who are likely to flee and leave you." Abu Bakr said, "Go suck the clitoris of Alat. Would we flee and leave him?" Alat was a goddess worshipped by Urwa. So Abu Bakr answers Urwa's entirely reasonable point with an extraordinarily offensive insult against Urwa's religious beliefs. "Go perform oral sex on your goddess, Urwa." Abu Bakr obviously saw no problem with insulting Urwa's goddess. Why? Because Surah 6, verse 108 was abrogated. It didn't apply here, because if Urwa had responded by insulting Allah, Abu Bakr would have chopped his head off. The ultimate insult to the polytheists came when Muhammad conquered Mecca. Sahih al-Bukhari, 4287. When the Prophet entered Mecca on the day of the conquest of Mecca, there were 360 idols around the Kaaba. The Prophet started striking them with a stick he had in his hand and was saying, "Al-Haq," the truth, i.e. Islamic monotheism, or this Quran or jihad against polytheists, has come, and al-Batil, falsehood, i.e. Satan or polytheism, vanished. The Muslims smashed the 360 idols of the polytheists. Does that sound like a group of men who were convinced that God doesn't want them insulting other people's gods? Of course not. So what's the real principle at work here? The real principle underlying the commands of Allah and Muhammad is this: do whatever is in the best interest of the Muslim community at a given time. When it's no longer in the best interest of the Muslim community, change the rules. If you're hopelessly outnumbered, promote peace with the unbelievers. If you've got an army, violently subjugate them and smash their gods to pieces. Shahid Siddiqui lives in New Delhi, where Muslims make up a little under 5% of the population. What's in the best interest of the Muslim community there? Preach peace and tolerance. Don't insult other people's gods. Pretend that several centuries of jihadis smashing Hindu idols and destroying Hindu temples never happened. It's in the best interest of the Muslim community of New Delhi to spread this deception. But that doesn't mean the rest of us have to fall for it.